The year was 2157. Humanity had spread across the solar system, with colonies on Mars, Venus, and several moons of Jupiter and Saturn. The United Earth Defense Force protected these settlements and kept the peace among the stars. Major Greg Collins stood on the bridge of the USS Relentless, staring at the vast darkness of space through the main viewport. Tiny pinpricks of light dotted the blackness, distant stars and the faint glow of Neptune below them. The Relentless was a mid-sized frigate, not the biggest ship in the fleet, but fast and well-armed. "Major, we're picking up something strange," said Lieutenant Olivia Martinez. Her fingers danced across the glowing control panel. "It's not matching any known signature." Collins walked over to her station. At 42, he had the weathered look of someone who had seen too much combat. A scar ran along his jawline, a reminder of the Mars insurgency where he had earned his reputation as a brilliant tactician. "Show me," he said. Martinez pulled up the sensor readings. A strange energy pattern appeared on the screen, unlike anything in their database. "It's about 500,000 kilometers from Neptune's orbit," she said, moving slowly but on a controlled path. Collins frowned. "Natural objects don't move like that. Could it be some secret project from the Martian colonies?" "Negative, sir. I've checked against all registered human vessels and probes." The ship's communications officer, Sergeant Ryan Cooper, called from his station. "Sir, we're receiving a transmission. It's like nothing I've ever seen." The bridge fell silent. First contact. Every human knew this day would come eventually, but few expected to be there when it happened. "Put it through," Collins ordered. The main screen filled with strange patterns of light and color. Then slowly the patterns formed into something resembling a face, if a face could be made of shifting blue crystals and glowing yellow eyes. "Universal Translator is working on it," Cooper said, his voice tight with tension. After a few moments, words began to form. "We are Zellari. We come in peace and curiosity. Your signals have reached our listening posts. We wish exchange of knowledge." Collins took a deep breath. "This is Major Gregory Collins of the United Earth Defense Force vessel Relentless. We welcome you to our solar system. Over the next few hours, the humans and Zellari exchanged basic information. The aliens had traveled from a star system 50 light-years away. They were explorers and scientists, they claimed. They requested a face-to-face meeting. Collins consulted with Earth Command and they agreed to meet at Triton Station, a neutral research outpost orbiting Neptune's largest moon. "I don't like this," Martinez said as they prepared to board the shuttle to Triton Station. "Something feels off about them." Collins nodded. "I feel it too, but orders are orders. We're taking all possible precautions." Triton Station was small but well-equipped for diplomatic functions. The human delegation arrived first. Collins, Martinez, and 3 other crew members including Dr. Lisa Patel, the ship's xenobiologist. The Zellari arrived an hour later. They were tall, nearly 7 feet, with crystalline exoskeletons that shifted colors with their movements. Their ambassador called itself Zenith Prime. The meeting began cordially enough. The Zellari were particularly interested in human biology. "Your species fascinates us," Zenith Prime said, its voice a strange harmony of tones. "Most sentient life evolves with similar patterns. Yet you seem different." Dr. Patel led this part of the discussion. "How so?" "All intelligent species we have encountered possess biological safeguards, emergency protocols within the nervous system to prevent self-destruction." Collins leaned forward. "You mean like pain?" "More than pain," the alien explained. "When damage reaches critical levels, or when stress becomes too great, biological systems naturally shut down aggressive response. It preserves the species." Martinez exchanged a glance with Collins. "You're saying your people have an off switch?" "A crude but accurate description," Zenith Prime confirmed. "When one of our kind reaches their threshold, their combat systems automatically deactivate. It prevents needless death and allows for negotiation. Do humans not possess this evolutionary advantage?" Dr. Patel shook her head. "Humans can certainly be incapacitated by injury or stress, But we don't have any automatic shutdown mechanism for aggression. In fact, humans often fight harder when injured or cornered. The Zilari delegation grew very still. The colors in their crystalline bodies darkened. This cannot be, Zenith Prime said. All sentient life must have evolved with proper safeguards. Without them, a species would destroy itself before achieving space travel. Collins felt uneasy. Well, we've had our close calls, but we're still here. The discussion moved to other topics, but the Zilari remained fixated on human biology. They seemed especially interested in military matters, how humans trained for combat, how they responded to battlefield stress. During a break in the talks, Martinez pulled Collins aside. "Sir, they're gathering intelligence on our weaknesses," she whispered. "This isn't a diplomatic mission, it's military reconnaissance." Collins nodded grimly. "I've already alerted the Relentless to stand by for emergency protocols. We'll wrap this up quickly," and an explosion rocked the station. Alarms blared throughout the corridors. "We're under attack," shouted Cooper through the comm system. Multiple Zilari vessels decloaking around the station. Collins grabbed his sidearm. "Everyone to the shuttle now." The Zilari delegation had vanished. As Collins led his team through the corridors, they encountered station security engaged in firefights with Zilari soldiers. These warriors were different from the diplomats. Their crystalline bodies were deep red and covered in sharp protrusions. They were hiding their warriors among their delegation, Martinez said as she fired at an approaching Zilari. Her shot struck it directly in the chest. The alien paused, its colors fading momentarily before it simply shut down and collapsed. The off switch, Collins realized. They really do shut down when they take critical damage. They fought their way to the docking bay, but found their shuttle destroyed. Only one small transport vessel remained intact. "It can fit 3 people at most," Martinez said, checking the systems. Collins looked at his 5-person team. "Cooper, you're injured. You and Dr. Patel take Ferguson and get back to the Relentless. Martinez and I will find another way off." "But, sir," Cooper began. "That's an order. Tell Captain Blake what happened here. Earth needs to be warned." As the small transport pulled away, Collins and Martinez raced through the station looking for another escape route. They found an access tunnel leading to a maintenance hangar where emergency pods were stored. "Sir, look," Martinez pointed to a view screen showing the space around Triton. A massive Zilari fleet had appeared, far larger than the single vessel they'd first encountered. The Relentless was engaging, but clearly outmatched. As they watched, the small transport carrying their comrades made it to the frigate just before it jumped to faster-than-light speed, escaping the ambush. "They planned this all along," Collins said grimly. "They thought we'd be easy to defeat because they believe all species have this biological off switch." Martinez checked her weapon. "They're about to learn humans don't work that way." They reached the emergency hangar just as a squad of Zilari warriors burst in. What followed was a desperate battle. Collins took a crystalline blade to his arm, but kept fighting. Martinez was thrown against a wall but got up firing her weapon. The Zilari seemed genuinely confused by their continued resistance. One of them actually called out, "Why do you not deactivate? You have reached threshold." Collins answered with a well-aimed shot that caused the alien to shut down instantly. They managed to reach an escape pod and launched just as the station began to break apart from internal explosions. As they sped away from Neptune, they intercepted Zilari communications. "They're heading for Earth," Martinez said, her face pale as she translated the alien language. "They think they can force humanity to surrender by pushing us to our biological breaking point." Collins stared out at the stars, his injured arm throbbing. They're about to learn the hard way that humans don't have an off switch. 6 weeks had passed since the Zilari attack. The Earth sky, once blue and clear, now reflected the red glow of alien ships in orbit. Major Greg Collins looked up through a crack in the bunker's ceiling and clenched his fist. The aliens had arrived, just 3 days after the attack on Triton Station, giving humanity little time to prepare. Their escape pod had crashed in the mountains of what was once called Canada. Collins and Martinez had spent 2 weeks trekking through forests and abandoned towns before finding other survivors. Now they were in an underground base hidden deep in the Rocky Mountains. "Major, the commander wants to see you," said a young soldier, his face dirty and tired. Collins nodded and followed him through narrow concrete corridors. The base had once been a Cold War relic, built to withstand nuclear attacks. Now it served as one of the last strongholds of human resistance. Commander Diane Wells waited in the command center, a large room filled with salvaged equipment and flickering screens. Maps covered the walls, showing Zilari positions across the globe. Red markers far outnumbered the blue ones that represented human forces. "Collins, glad you could join us," Wells said. She was a tall woman with short gray hair and eyes that had seen too much loss. "Lieutenant Martinez was just giving us her report on Zilari biology." Martinez stood beside a table where a piece of crystalline material was displayed, a fragment from a Zilari warrior. "As I was explaining," Martinez continued, "the Zilari genuinely believed all intelligent species would have evolved with biological safety mechanisms. When they reach a certain threshold of damage or stress, their bodies automatically shut down aggressive responses." A man Collins hadn't met before spoke up. "Like a circuit breaker in the brain." He was shorter than Collins, with thick glasses and hands stained with machine oil. "That's Paul Jackson, our chief engineer," Wells explained. "He's been studying the Zilari tech we've managed to salvage." Jackson adjusted his glasses. "Their entire society is built around this concept. Their weapons, their tactics, even their diplomatic protocols assume that eventually their opponents will simply power down. Which is why they're so confused by us," Collins said. "Humans don't have an off switch." Wells pointed to one of the screens showing a Zilari communication they had intercepted and translated. "They're calling our continued resistance a biological anomaly. They can't understand why we haven't surrendered." "What's the status of our forces?" Collins asked, looking at the map. Wells sighed. "Not good. We've lost contact with most of Asia and Europe. Australia is holding out in the outback. Africa has strong resistance cells in the mountain regions. Here in North America, we have about 12 major bases left." Jackson cleared his throat. "But I may have found something interesting." He pulled up an image on the main screen. "This is a thermal scan of the far side of the moon. The Zilari have built something massive there." The image showed a sprawling complex covering a large portion of the lunar surface, glowing with energy signatures. "We think it's their main base of operations," Wells said, "and possibly where they're keeping human prisoners for study." Collins felt his stomach tighten. "Study?" Martinez nodded grimly. "They're trying to figure out why we don't have the off switch. They're experimenting on captured humans." The room fell silent. Then Collins spoke up. "We need to get up there, gather intelligence, maybe find their weakness." "That's suicide," Jackson said. "Maybe not," Wells replied. She pulled up another image showing a small Zilari shuttle. "We captured this 3 days ago. It's damaged, but Jackson thinks he can get it working." Jackson nodded reluctantly. "It's possible. The Zilari technology is advanced but follows logical patterns. I've been studying their language and programming codes." Collins studied the shuttle image. "If we can get that working, a small team could slip past their orbital defenses." "That's what I was thinking," Wells said. "And I want you to lead it, Collins. Your experience with the Zilari at first contact makes you our best option." Martinez stepped forward. "I'm going too. I've been learning their language, and I can interpret any intelligence we find." Wells looked at them both, then at Jackson. "It would be helpful to have someone who understands their technology." Jackson fidgeted with his glasses. "I'm not a soldier." "None of us were soldiers before this war," Collins said quietly. "Now we all are." After a moment, Jackson nodded. "I'll go." Wells walked to another screen and pulled up personnel files. "There's something else you should know. My husband, Dr. Alan Wells, was on the Lunar Research Station when the Zilari attacked. Intelligence suggests he's among those being held for experimentation." Her voice remained steady, but Collins could see the pain in her eyes. "We'll find him. If he's there," Collins promised. The next 3 days were spent preparing. Jackson worked on the shuttle, figuring out how to operate it and mask its energy signature. Martinez studied more Zilari language samples, and worked on ways to access their computer systems. Collins trained with the weapons they had salvaged from fallen Zilari warriors. The night before the mission, Collins couldn't sleep. He walked through the quiet corridors of the base until he found himself in the small room they used as a memorial. Photos and personal items of fallen soldiers lined the walls. He stopped at a familiar face, Sergeant Ryan Cooper, who had escaped Triton Station only to die defending Earth during the first wave of attacks. "We're still fighting, Sergeant," Collins whispered. "They never expected that, did they?" Martinez's voice came from behind him. She stood in the doorway holding 2 cups of what passed for coffee these days. Collins accepted one. "They thought we'd reach some kind of threshold and just give up. The Zilari believe in efficiency above all else," Martinez said. "From their perspective, continuing to fight when defeat seems certain is illogical, wasteful. Human history is full of people fighting impossible odds," Collins replied. "Sometimes they even win." The next morning, the team made final preparations. The shuttle was small, barely big enough for 3 people and minimal equipment. They would wear salvaged Zilari communication devices to monitor enemy transmissions. "Remember, this is reconnaissance only," Commander Wells instructed as they prepared to leave. "Get in, gather intelligence on their weaknesses, and get out. Don't try to be heroes." Collins nodded, though they all knew the mission would likely be one way. As they boarded the shuttle, Jackson looked nervous but determined. "I've programmed the shuttle to transmit false identification codes. As far as they know, we're a supply ship returning from Earth." Martinez took the navigation controls. "Let's hope they don't look too closely." The shuttle lifted off from a hidden launch site in the mountains. As they rose through the atmosphere, they got their first clear view of the Zilari fleet. Hundreds of crystalline ships glittering like deadly jewels against the blackness of space. "My God," Jackson whispered. "There are so many of them." Collins stared at the armada surrounding his home planet. "They brought this many ships because they expected us to have an off switch. They thought this would be easy." He checked his weapon. They were wrong. As they set course for the dark side of the moon, they intercepted a Zilari transmission. Martinez listened, her face growing pale. "What is it?" Collins asked. "They're planning something big," she said. "Something about final solution for the anomalous species. Collins, they're not just trying to conquer us, they're planning to exterminate us." The small shuttle continued toward the moon, carrying 3 humans on a desperate mission to save their species from aliens who couldn't understand why humans refused to stop fighting. The journey to the moon took 12 hours. Collins, Martinez, and Jackson remained mostly silent, each lost in their own thoughts. The small Zilari shuttle trembled as it approached the massive lunar base. "Incoming transmission," Martinez whispered, adjusting the alien communication device attached to her ear. "They're asking for identification." Jackson quickly typed on the control panel. "Sending the fake codes now." Seconds passed like hours. Collins gripped his weapon, ready for the worst. "We're cleared," Martinez finally said, letting out a breath. "They think we're a supply ship from Earth." The shuttle docked in a large hangar filled with similar vessels. Through the viewports, they could see dozens of Zilari moving about, their crystalline bodies glowing in various colors. "Remember the plan?" Collins said quietly. "We stay together, find a computer terminal, gather intelligence, and look for human prisoners. We have 6 hours before they expect this shuttle to depart again." They had modified Zilari armor to fit their human bodies. The helmets concealed their faces, and the strange, flowing material covered their human shapes. As long as they didn't speak or move too oddly, they might pass for Zilari. They exited the shuttle, keeping their movements slow and deliberate. The hangar was busy with activity, which helped them blend in. They followed a group of Zilari through a wide corridor. "Look at the size of this place," Jackson whispered through their private communication channel. "It must have taken them years to build this." "Which means they were watching us long before first contact," Collins replied. The corridor opened into a vast central chamber. Multiple levels rose above them, connected by flowing ramps instead of stairs. Everything was made of the same crystal-like material as the Zilari themselves, glowing with inner light. Martinez pointed discreetly to signs on the walls. I can read some of their writing now. That way to their command center, and that direction, leads to what they call biological research. That's where they'll keep the prisoners, Collins said. But we need intelligence first. Jackson, can you access their systems? Jackson studied the room. I need to find a terminal away from others. They found a small side chamber with several console-like structures. Jackson went to work while Collins and Martinez stood guard. These systems are fascinating, Jackson muttered as his fingers moved across the glowing surfaces. They don't use electronics like we do. It's all based on crystalline resonance. After several tense minutes, Jackson had broken into the Zalari network. I'm in. What am I looking for? Anything about their plans, their weaknesses, Collins said. Information about prisoners, Martinez added. Jackson downloaded data at an impressive speed considering he was using alien technology. I'm finding something interesting. The Zalari aren't individual beings like us. They're connected somehow, like a hive mind but more complex. Collins looked over his shoulder. What do you mean? Their ships, their soldiers, they're all extensions of a central consciousness. That's why they shut down when damaged. It's a protection mechanism for the central mind. Martinez leaned closer. So the off switch isn't just to prevent needless death, it's to protect their collective consciousness from trauma. Exactly, Jackson said. And look at this. They're utterly confused by humans. Their reports call us dangerously unstable because we keep fighting past what they consider rational limits. Collins was about to respond when an alarm suddenly blared through the chamber. Red light pulsed through the crystal walls. Did they spot us? Martinez asked. Jackson shook his head, still reading. No, it's something else. They've scheduled a demonstration in the research sector. Something about testing human limits. Collins made a quick decision. We need to move now. Download everything you can and let's get to that research sector. They moved through increasingly complex corridors, following Martinez's translations of the signs. The alarm had brought many Zalari into the hallways, making it easier to blend in with the crowd. They reached an observation area overlooking a large laboratory. Below them, through a transparent barrier, they could see human prisoners in cells. Men and women in torn clothes, looking thin but defiant. There's Dr. Wells, Martinez whispered, pointing to a tall man with a beard. Despite his condition, he stood straight, glaring at the Zalari scientists. A voice came over some kind of announcement system speaking in the Zalari language. Martinez translated. They're saying, today we will demonstrate the anomalous resistance of the human species. Subject 27 has endured stimuli that would deactivate any rational species, yet continues to resist. Collins scanned the room, looking for a way in. We need to get down there. Wait, Jackson said, pointing to a different door. That leads to their control room. We can override their systems from there. They slipped away from the crowd and found the control room unguarded. Inside, Zalari scientists were focused on their experiment, backs turned to the door. Collins moved silently, years of combat training guiding him. He disabled the first scientist with a quick blow to what he hoped was a vulnerable spot. The Zalari's colors faded immediately and it shut down. Martinez and Jackson took care of the other two scientists just as efficiently. Lock the door, Collins ordered. Jackson went to the main console. I can access their security systems from here. Also, I'm continuing to download their data. Through the control room's window, they could see the laboratory clearly now. A human woman was strapped to some kind of examination table, surrounded by Zalari scientists. Despite obvious signs of torture, her eyes burned with defiance. Get those locks open, Collins said, checking his weapon. Martinez worked on the door controls while Jackson continued downloading. I found something big, Jackson said suddenly. The Zalari ships all connect to a central node. If we could disrupt that connection, we might be able to disable their entire fleet at once. Before Collins could respond, the door to the laboratory slid open. Collins moved in first, weapon raised. The Zalari scientists turned in surprise, their bodies flashing bright colors in alarm. Don't move, Collins ordered, though he knew they couldn't understand him. The tone was universal enough. Martinez and Jackson followed him in. Martinez went straight to the cells, working on the release mechanism. One of the Zilari stepped forward, its colors shifting to a deep purple. "You are human," it said in broken English. "How are you still functional? Our tests show you should have deactivated days ago." Collins kept his weapon trained on the alien. "That's what you don't understand. Humans don't have an off switch." The scientist seemed genuinely puzzled. "Illogical. All sentient life must have protective shutdowns. It is evolutionary necessity." "Not for us," Collins said as Martinez began freeing the prisoners. The cell doors slid open. Dr. Wells emerged first, helping the woman who had been on the examination table. "Who are you?" Wells asked. "Major Greg Collins. Your wife sent us. We're getting you out of here." Relief washed over Wells's face. "Diane is alive?" "Very much so, and leading the resistance," Collins assured him. "Can you all walk?" There were 23 prisoners in total. Most could move on their own, though some needed support. Jackson looked up from the console, his face pale. "We've got problems. They know we're here. Security forces are on their way." As if to confirm his words, an alarm blared through the facility, different from the earlier one. This one sounded urgent, dangerous. "We need to move," Collins said. "Back to the shuttle. Martinez, take point. Jackson, help with the wounded. I'll cover our rear." They led the freed prisoners through the corridors. They had almost reached the junction leading back to the hangar when a squad of Zilari warriors appeared, their bodies glowing bright red. "Take cover!" Collins shouted, pushing several prisoners behind a crystalline column. The battle that followed was chaotic and fierce. The Zilari fired weapons that shot pulses of energy, shattering part of the corridor. Collins, Martinez, and several of the stronger prisoners fought back with the weapons they had taken from the lab. Collins took a hit to his shoulder that burned through his armor. The pain was intense, but he kept fighting. A Zilari commander stepped forward, its body pulsing with angry red light. "Human warriors, you have reached damage threshold. Deactivate now and surrender." Collins answered by shooting the commander directly in its central mass. The alien's colors faded instantly as it shut down. The remaining Zilari seemed shocked by this response. They had clearly expected the humans to stop fighting once injured. "They really don't understand us," Martinez said, firing again despite a wound on her leg. "That's our advantage," Collins replied. "Jackson, have you got what we need?" Jackson nodded, clutching a small crystal device he had stolen from the lab. "Everything. Their fleet communications, weaknesses, even their battle plans." "Then let's get out of here," Collins said, helping a wounded prisoner to his feet. They fought their way to the hangar, leaving confused and deactivated Zilari in their wake. The aliens simply couldn't comprehend how the humans continued fighting, despite injuries that would cause any Zilari to shut down. As they reached the shuttle, more alarms blared across the base. Jackson rushed to the controls, starting the launch sequence. "They're sealing the hangar doors," he warned. Collins helped the last prisoner aboard. "Can we make it?" "We're about to find out," Jackson said, pushing the shuttle to full power. The small vessel shot forward, barely clear. The damaged shuttle streaked through space, engines straining beyond their safe limits. Inside, the air grew thinner with each passing minute. The rescued prisoners huddled together for warmth as the life support systems failed one by one. "Status report," Collins said, his breath visible in the chilling air. Jackson's fingers moved across the controls, frost forming on his eyebrows. "Not good. We've pushed the engines to 130% capacity. They could fail any minute." "And if they don't fail?" Collins asked. "We'll reach Earth's atmosphere in 4 hours and 20 minutes. Martinez looked up from tending to a wounded prisoner. "That's still 20 minutes too late." Dr. Wells moved to join their conversation. Despite weeks of captivity, his eyes were sharp and focused. "We could shut down non-essential sections of the shuttle, redirect power from weapons systems to life support." "Already done," Jackson replied. "We're down to the bare minimum." Collins stared out the viewport at the distant blue sphere of Earth. We need to reduce oxygen consumption. The implication hung heavy in the air. 26 people on board breathing precious oxygen. I'll go, Collins said quietly. I can take a spacesuit and wait outside the shuttle. One less person breathing. Martinez shook her head firmly. No. We need you for what comes next. She looked around at the other passengers. We need another solution. Dr. Wells studied the shuttle's systems. The Zilari don't breathe like we do. Their ships are designed differently. He pointed to a crystalline structure near the rear of the shuttle. This might be a resonance chamber. The Zilari use crystalline vibrations for power and possibly for processing gases. Jackson's eyes widened. Yes, their biology is silicon-based, not carbon. They might extract oxygen differently. He and Dr. Wells began working on the alien technology, while Collins and Martinez kept the survivors calm. After 30 tense minutes, Jackson looked up with a smile. We found it. The Zilari extract oxygen from silicon compounds. There's a secondary atmospheric system we can modify to produce oxygen for us. Will it be enough? Collins asked. If we're very careful with our breathing, yes, Dr. Wells replied. The journey continued, each minute stretching like an hour. The modified system produced just enough oxygen to keep everyone alive, though they all grew lightheaded and weak. Finally, Earth filled the viewport. Blue oceans, white clouds, and the scars of Zilari attacks visible even from space. Entering. Atmosphere in 5 minutes, Jackson announced. Collins activated the communication system. This is Major Collins to any human forces. We are in a captured Zilari shuttle returning from the moon with rescued prisoners and critical intelligence. Please respond. Static filled the speakers, then a familiar voice broke through. Collins, this is Commander Wells. Is Alan with you? He's here, along with 22 other survivors. But we're coming in hot with failing systems. Need emergency. Landing coordinates. Sending them now. We've relocated to the Arizona underground base after the Rocky Mountain facility was discovered. The shuttle shuddered violently as it hit the upper atmosphere. Heat built up around the hull. Warning lights flashing across every control panel. Jackson, can you land this thing? Collins asked. Theoretically, Jackson replied, gripping the controls tightly. The descent was rough. The shuttle bounced off the atmosphere twice before catching and plunging downward at a dangerous angle. Jackson fought with the alien controls, sweat pouring down his face despite the cold. Everyone brace for impact, Collins shouted as the ground rushed toward them. The shuttle crashed in the Arizona desert, skidding almost half a mile before coming to rest against a rock formation. Miraculously, no one was killed, though several suffered new injuries. Resistance fighters reached them within an hour, bringing them to the underground base hidden beneath an abandoned pre-war solar farm. The reunion between Commander Wells and her husband was brief but emotional. Neither of them were people who showed feelings easily, but their tight embrace spoke volumes. In the command center, Collins, Martinez, and Jackson presented their findings to the resistance leadership. Dr. Wells, despite his ordeal, joined them. The Zilari operate as a connected consciousness, Jackson explained, showing the data he had stolen. Their ships, their soldiers, they're all extensions of a central mind. That's why they shut down when damaged. It's to protect the core, consciousness from trauma, which means they're vulnerable, Dr. Wells added. Their neural network can be overloaded. If we can create a feedback loop in their system, we might be able to disrupt their entire fleet at once. Commander Wells studied the information carefully. You're suggesting a neural bomb, something that would overwhelm their hive mind? Exactly, Dr. Wells confirmed. Their biology and technology are based on the same crystalline structures. They use resonance to communicate across vast distances. If we can create a device that interferes with that resonance, I can build it, Jackson said confidently. With the data we gathered and some of the components we brought back, it's possible. Before they could discuss further, alarms blared throughout the base. A communications officer rushed in. Commander, the Zilari are broadcasting on all frequencies. They're addressing humanity directly. On the main screen, a Zilari appeared. larger and more complex than any they had seen before, its crystalline body shifting through a rainbow of colors. "Humans of Earth," it began, its voice translated through their systems. "You are continued. Resistance defies all rational behavior. You have reached the point where any logical species would deactivate combat protocols and accept our authority. Your biological anomaly has been noted but cannot be tolerated. We now implement final measures." The screen showed Zalari ships moving into new positions around Earth. "They're concentrating their forces over major population centers," Martinez observed. "This is your final opportunity to submit," the Zalari continued. "Demonstrate your acceptance by ceasing all resistance activities. Failure to comply will result in planetary sterilization procedures." The screen went dark. "They're going to wipe us out," someone whispered. Commander Wells stood tall, her face resolute. "How soon can you build this neural bomb?" "With the right materials, 3 days," Jackson replied. "You have 2, she said. "Collins, I need you to lead a strike team to buy us time. Hit their ground forces, keep them occupied while we build this device." Collins nodded. "I'll need every fighter we can spare." "You'll have them," Commander Wells promised. "Martinez, I want you coordinating our remaining air forces. Scatter attacks, nothing concentrated. Keep them guessing." Martinez saluted. "Yes, ma'am." As they prepared for what might be humanity's last stand, Dr. Wells approached Collins privately. "The Zalari truly cannot comprehend why we continue fighting. In their minds, we should have given up weeks ago." "That's why we'll win," Collins replied. "They expect an off switch that doesn't exist." Across the globe, the remaining human forces prepared for battle. Collins led his team out at dawn, attacking Zalari ground forces with guerrilla tactics. Martinez coordinated airstrikes from the few remaining aircraft, hitting Zalari positions and quickly retreating. During one such attack, Martinez's aircraft took a direct hit. Her communication cut off mid-sentence. "Martinez, report," Collins shouted into his radio. No response came. The news reached him hours later during a brief return to base. Martinez's aircraft had been shot down over the Rocky Mountains. No survivors had been found. Collins stood alone in the communications room, grief threatening to overwhelm him. Martinez had been more than a fellow officer. She had been a friend, someone who understood the weight of command, someone he had come to care deeply about. A Zalari would have shut down at this point. The emotional trauma would have triggered their biological off switch. For a moment, Collins wished humans had such a mechanism, anything to stop the pain. Instead, he straightened his shoulders and returned to the command center. There was work to do. The Zalari would learn that even in grief, humans don't stop fighting. "The neural bomb is almost ready," Jackson told him, "but the Zalari are moving their mothership into Earth orbit. Commander Wells thinks that's where their central consciousness resides." Collins studied the tactical display. "Then that's where we need to go next." 2 days later, the resistance base buzzed with activity. Jackson and Dr. Wells had completed the neural bomb ahead of schedule, a crystal device the size of a baseball that pulsed with strange light. "It's simple in theory," Jackson explained to the gathered team. "It will create a resonance pattern that disrupts the Zalari hive mind, like a deafening sound that they can't block out." Commander Wells studied the device. "And you're sure this will work?" "As sure as we can be without testing it," Dr. Wells replied. "But we need to deliver it directly to their mothership. The effect has a limited range." All eyes turned to Collins. His face was drawn with fatigue and grief, but his eyes remained determined. "I'll take it," he said simply. "Not alone," a voice said from the doorway. Collins turned, not believing his ears. There, leaning on a makeshift crutch, stood Martinez. Her uniform was torn and dirty, her face scratched, but she was very much alive. "Martinez?" Collins could barely speak. "They said your aircraft went down." "It did," she said with a slight smile. "But I wasn't in it. I ejected just before impact. Took me 2 days to make it back here." Collins felt a weight lift from his chest. The room erupted in cheers and relief. Commander Wells waited for the noise to die down. This doesn't change the facts. We need to get that device to the mothership, and we need a distraction big enough to give the delivery team a chance. We still have the Zalari shuttle, Jackson pointed out. It's damaged, but I've repaired the essential systems. It could get a small team to the mothership. And the rest of us will create the biggest distraction humanity has ever seen, Commander Wells said. We'll throw everything we have left at their ground forces. The plan took shape quickly. Collins would lead the mission to the mothership, with Martinez and Jackson accompanying him. They would pose as captured humans being delivered for experimentation, a common practice among the Zalari forces now. As dawn broke the next day, the remaining human forces around the world prepared for what might be their final battle. Commander Wells would coordinate the global attack from the Arizona base while Dr. Wells monitored the neural bomb. Before boarding the shuttle, Collins spoke privately with Commander Wells. If we don't make it back, she cut him off. You will. Humans don't have an off switch, remember? The repaired shuttle lifted off, carrying Collins, Martinez, and Jackson toward the massive Zalari mothership now visible in the sky even during daylight. As they rose through the atmosphere, they could see fires erupting across the landscape below, the human resistance launching simultaneous attacks around the globe. It's working, Martinez said, monitoring the Zalari communications. They're redirecting ships from orbit to deal with the ground attacks. The mothership grew larger in their viewport, an enormous crystalline structure that seemed to shimmer and pulse with inner light. Dozens of smaller ships surrounded it like protecting insects around their queen. Incoming transmission, Jackson warned. They're asking for identification. Martinez activated their prepared response, a message indicating they were bringing special human specimens for the Supreme Consciousness to examine personally. Long moments passed. Collins gripped his concealed weapon. We're cleared to dock in Bay 4, Martinez finally announced. The shuttle slid into an enormous hangar filled with Zalari vessels. Unlike the lunar base, the mothership teemed with Zalari of all types. Warriors, scientists, and strange new variants they hadn't seen before. Remember, we're prisoners until we reach the central chamber, Collins reminded them. Jackson nodded, the neural bomb hidden inside his tattered clothing. Martinez had insisted on carrying it, but her limp from the crash landing would have made her an object of suspicion. Zalari guards met them at the shuttle. Collins and the others allowed themselves to be roughly handled and escorted through glittering corridors. The inside of the mothership was like a living thing, pulsing with light that seemed to flow through the walls themselves. This whole ship is alive, Jackson whispered. It's an extension of their hive mind. The guards led them deeper into the ship, finally arriving at a vast central chamber. Unlike the utilitarian spaces they had seen before, this room was beautiful. Crystal formations rose like trees, light dancing between them in complex patterns. In the center floated a large crystalline entity, far larger and more complex than any Zalari they had seen. Its surface rippled with colors and patterns too intricate to follow. The Supreme Consciousness, Martinez breathed. The entity pulsed brightly, and a voice seemed to come from everywhere at once. The anomalous humans, it said. I wish to observe you myself before the final solution is implemented. Collins stepped forward. We came to talk, to understand each other. The Supreme Consciousness flickered with what might have been surprise. Talk? Your species has demonstrated its irrationality. You continue fighting long past the point where any logical species would deactivate. You are a danger to all ordered life. That's where you're wrong, Collins said. Our persistence isn't a flaw. It's our greatest strength. The entity pulsed with colors. Explain. Collins moved closer, drawing the guard's attention to himself. Throughout human history, we've faced disasters, wars, plagues. We never stopped fighting to survive. There were always those who kept going, no matter the odds. Inefficient, the Supreme Consciousness responded. Resources wasted on doomed efforts. Sometimes, Collins admitted, but other times that refusal to give up is exactly what saved us. What pushed us to find solutions no one thought possible? As Collins kept the entity engaged, Martinez slowly moved to one side of the chamber. Jackson edged toward a crystalline formation that seemed connected to others throughout the room. Your species cannot even protect its own individuals, the Supreme Consciousness continued. You risk total loss rather than accept reasonable defeat. We protect each other differently, Collins said. We fight for each other, even when it seems hopeless. The entity's colors darkened. You have no biological safeguards. You are dangerous to yourselves and others. The final solution is mercy. That's not your decision to make, Collins said firmly. The Supreme Consciousness flared brightly. Guards, prepare these specimens for dissection. I will observe their neural structures directly. That was the signal. Collins drew his concealed weapon and fired at the guards nearest to him. Martinez took down 2 more. Jackson pulled out the neural bomb and slammed it against the crystal formation. Now, he shouted. The bomb activated, sending pulses of energy through the crystalline network. The effect was immediate and dramatic. Every Zellari in the chamber froze, their colors cycling wildly. The Supreme Consciousness itself contracted, its smooth surface becoming jagged and chaotic. What is this? The entity's voice distorted, echoing strangely. A taste of what humans live with every day, Collins said. Pain, fear, uncertainty. The things we push through because we don't have an off switch. The Supreme Consciousness writhed. Make it stop. Biological safeguards failing. Throughout the mothership, alarms blared. On screens around the chamber, they could see Zellari ships around Earth suddenly losing formation, drifting aimlessly. The neural network is disrupted, Jackson said excitedly. It's working. The Supreme Consciousness contracted further, its colors fading to a dull gray. Please, it said, its voice now barely audible. We will leave. We will never return. Collins looked at Martinez and Jackson. They nodded. Stop the attacks on Earth immediately, Collins demanded. Recall all your forces. Yes, the entity agreed, weakly. Sending commands now. On the screens they watched as Zellari ships began moving away from Earth, gathering around the mothership. Jackson, modify the bomb, Collins ordered. Make it stop. Jackson adjusted something on the device. The Mayor, pulsing slowed, then stopped. The Supreme Consciousness gradually expanded again, its colors returning, though more subdued than before. You could have destroyed us, it said, sounding confused. Why didn't you? Because that's another difference between us, Collins said. We know when to stop fighting. The journey back to Earth was quiet. The Zellari fleet retreated beyond the moon, still visibly disoriented from the neural bomb's effects. Martinez monitored their communications, confirming they were indeed leaving the solar system. When they landed at the Arizona base, they were greeted as heroes. Commander Wells met them with rare tears in her eyes. Reports are coming in from around the world, she told them. The Zellari are withdrawing everywhere. We did it. That night, as humanity began the long process of rebuilding, Collins stood outside the base looking at the stars. Martinez joined him, her limp already improving. Do you think they learned their lesson? She asked. Collins nodded slowly. I think the galaxy just got a new warning sign. Beware of humans. They don't have an off switch. Martinez smiled. And that's exactly why we won. In the weeks that followed, Earth began to rebuild. The Zellari technology they had captured helped accelerate the recovery. Communication was eventually established with the retreating Zellari fleet. The Supreme Consciousness sent one final message before their ships jumped to faster-than-light travel, heading for their home system. We misjudged humanity. What we saw as a dangerous flaw is perhaps your greatest strength. The stars hold many dangers. Your lack of an off switch may yet save you from threats we cannot imagine. We will tell others we encounter. Humans, Fig.